For those of you who've never seen this channel, the following is my somewhat semi-coherent emotional, mental, ideological breakdown of what happened in regards to the late Charlie Kirk. 5 different categories that I believe people can really be sort of sorted into by their reaction, and then 7 things to do based on Charlie, who was, in all honesty, the master debater. All of you at home, don't be a masturbator, be a master debater. Honor Charlie's legacy and consume the rest of this video at your own risk. Also, my apologies for the in and out of the camera. There's no way I'm recording. There's no way I'm re-recording this video. I spent 2 hours recording pieces of it off and on because my voice just couldn't handle it. Been recovering from an illness. Took me so many days to do, largely because I was not able to talk and in a way not able to get words out in what I felt like was a respectful and measured way. We'll say measured way. It was not an easy first couple days, I'll tell you that. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when war happens. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 0 of the Boston-Raleigh show. I don't believe that I really ever intended on making this an episode 0. I'm not really sure what I was trying to do with this. At some point, I felt as though saying a little bit on Twitter might have been the best thing that I could do. So I put like a double the usual length post. And I think that it probably requires that I address this in some more meaningful, long thought out process. But all things considered, maybe it's lucky that I was feeling ill, because quite honestly, I would never have been able to make this 3-4 days ago. I'd have been yelling and screaming at the camera, as I'd said to some of my friends who had talked to this about beforehand. But here we go. Early show. Yeah, boxes. They will be relevant to the episode. This is all mess from my online business. We don't have a background set up yet because I wasn't supposed to be making episode 1 until about a week or 2 from now. And quite honestly, I'm not really sure if this was even a great idea in the first place, but here we go. Episode 0, the Patriarchy. Where do we go from here? That's actually probably not going to be the actual video title, but to those of you who are very new to this channel or who may have never seen anything by me, welcome. To those of you who are used to me being a voice behind a VTube avatar, also welcome. This is obviously going to be considerably more politically charged than I had even intended on making this channel, and honestly is going to sort of redirect the focus that I'm taking with said channel. Given that I didn't really have a good way to script this, because I don't believe that a script is really necessary to say what you're feeling without, I don't know. This is the kind of thing where I'm doing I measured the amount of emotion, the amount of vitriol I had before I came in. So that way I'd be doing this, again, not yelling at my computer, not yelling at my screen, not yelling at my camera. This has been a very emotional past 4 days. This is recorded Sunday night, should be coming out Monday afternoon. But let's say it's been approximately 5 days ago, the big thing happened. Now, there's been a lot leading up to this. And I say big thing, but I think we all know that it's a very sad and tragic and horrible thing. But it's so much bigger than just one assassination. It feels like literally everything has changed. Pretty much everything in regards to the country has changed in a giant tonal shift that is probably not really actually the kind of thing that I am used to, the kind of thing that I'm ready to deal with in some ways, or the kind of thing that most people are ready to deal with, because I feel like it has progressed the speed of history at a significant pace. Year ago, actually 14 months ago, we had a near presidential assassination of the former and also future president at the time, Donald J. Trump. He was nearly killed by a bullet. It nearly ended his life and was very, very close. I think everyone kind of understands. Maybe there are some people who don't understand, but if you believe in some sort of higher power, there was a minor head tilt there. History takes an entirely different path under those circumstances. Best not to think about it. I think it might have been worse than what happened just this past week. But what's striking to me is that in all of that, I've very rarely gone and watched a whole bunch of random creators on YouTube. I don't generally watch a lot of political commentators. I've generally stuck to the people who I think seem like they are less about political propaganda, more about accuracy, more about really trying to explain concepts that are either larger or more incoherent to the normal person's mouth and more coherent to theirs. So it's basically the same 7 conservatives and the same 3 liberals. For lack thereof of better stats. That's what I normally watch. On that day, though, none of those people had an active stream going for about a couple hours. And I think that maybe fate or providence led me to the turning point coverage of the assassination. And Charlie being very, very exuberantly panicked and upset about everything is kind of hard to think about posthumously because of what just happened, and likely because I think that at the time he knew that that was a real possibility for him. Yeah, I think that Charlie Kirk probably knew what he was getting into even before that, but more so with that, especially with the quote I gave you at the beginning. I think that's where he saw the country heading, and that's what he was trying so desperately to prevent. Charlie Kirk was never really the kind of person who I ever felt kind of condemned by. I'm a 27-year-old wifeless, childless, poor weeb, financially poor. We don't generally fit in well with even the new conservative crowd very much, but Charlie Kirk has never really. He's never really come at it from a place of judgment, aside from being able to judge truth versus fact versus fiction, truth versus evil. You generally got the sense that he didn't actively dislike you, or at the very least saw the opportunity within you to become better. The guy started Turning Point at a very young age of 18 years old, which is already impressive in and of itself to start anything at 18 at this point. Charlie Kirk built an entire organization from the ground up. 13 years from then to now, Turning Point USA has probably become, by all conventional wisdom, and everyone I've ever heard talk about it in the last, 5-ish days, TPUSA has been easily the most influential conservative organization, probably even dominating the RNC, which is a very, very big group. It is the Republican National Committee that I think TPUSA probably far outstretches whatever they're able to accomplish. He went around constantly talking to people, getting to know people, really kind of creating an open discourse, changing minds, turning views, all of that throughout over a decade of interactions with college students all over the country. And that kind of work is very difficult. Registering people to vote, doing insane groundwork for campaigns, that kind of stuff is very taxing, very difficult. A lot of cutting through mountain rock and clay sand, if you will. The very, very difficult on the ground work. Charlie Kirk did that like it was addictive. He was maybe the most dynamic, energetic person that I'd seen under like 40 in my life in that general movement. It seemed to me that he was the kind of person who had no real ceiling. And I say that as someone who can find and pick out a lot of different problems with a lot of different people that I've seen over the years. I think that there are a lot of people who are very good at what they do, but kind of can't really extend above that. There are a lot of people within the conservative movement, I think, that are, or just any kind of right-wing libertarian movements, constitutionalist movement, anything like that. Often they grow to where they are. And you kind of assume that they're not going to, they might expand their audience a little bit. They might notch up one higher office or something like that. I don't think Charlie Kirk had a ceiling. In that, I mean, he could have gone wherever. He could have registered 100 million new Republicans. He could have turned liberal to conservative at least 50 million people. I think he could have done any kind of grand scale, large kind of thing that he wanted to do. And it seems like that to him maybe was even more important than something like running for president, which he probably could have done that as well. He seemed like one of the most intellectually, not only intellectually consistent, he didn't seem to change his viewpoints that much from what I understood, although I didn't follow him closely enough to really make that assertion. I didn't know who he was back in the early 2010s or even the mid 2010s. But he kind of, he rocketed so far and so fast and so high, mainly because he was the kind of person who was very sharp, very quick on his feet, able to break down a larger kind of politically philosophical thing into very basic common things everyone can understand, even the college students. You know, the plumbers can understand him, the political leaders can understand him, and even the dumb little college students can understand him too. Because honestly, I've been through a 4-year degree. I know these people aren't significantly smarter than the average Joe, on a grand scale at least. I think that he often maybe benefited from that a little bit, in that he was able to turn a lot of people kind of questioning themselves because they came so unprepared, but he made everything so clear. He rationalized things very well. He was very articulate. He was very respectful. And it's part of why it's so hard to see the backlash in the outcry of things, is because he was just that respectful of a person. Pretty consistently, Charlie invited people. He was always interested in trying to talk to people, let them state whatever their side was, not try to interrupt them really. He let them talk, right? He let people talk. He let people try to articulate. He questioned, what do you mean? He tried to lead them to the conclusion they were trying to present for themselves. And I think that that's something that very few people do. I think that it was more of I'm interested in learning. I want to know what you think. And that's something you rarely ever see today at all. This is not gotcha guy. This is not giant douchebag grifter. He was the kind of person who he always sought out the most true and reasonable conclusion that he could figure out with any of the information he had. Without seeming like I'm trying to glaze him too much or anything, just considering that most people don't know who he is, they really only it's clear to me that they really only made judgments about him because of what they heard from either their friend, their coworker, family member, some source that wasn't being very honest, or they weren't getting their information from something realistic. Almost everything I've heard regarding Charlie Kirk is an absolute lie. Everything I've seen online, you can't. When I tried to find the aforementioned quote at the beginning of the video, it took me 10 minutes of rewording my searches. My algorithm should be sending me towards things that would be theoretically more pro Charlie, given everything in the last 4 days that I've researched. But just finding the quote to make sure I got the quote right took me 15 minutes, which is maybe the most indicative thing that this entire situation is completely fucked. This is probably an event where most people will remember where they were. I'm probably not going to forget. I was at work, and I got a news little blurb that said something to do with Charlie Kirk, and I didn't get to read it until I heard my coworker from the other room say that Charlie Kirk has been shot. And this was very jarring for me because this was about like 1:30 p.m. I can't remember thinking anything but this feels very real. And maybe that's strange because I think that this was it was debilitating and devastating for me. I wasn't right the rest of the day. Merely because in about an instant, I really it sunk in. I knew what this meant in the same way that people recounted, not to try to compare tragedies or anything, because I don't think it maps well, but it seemed like the same thing for me as it was for everyone else in regards to the second plane hitting the towers, where this isn't a tragedy all in and all of itself. This feels like a real problem. This feels like a conflict about to emerge, and trying to figure out what was going on in the situation. There was about 3-4 hour period before we had actual confirmation of his death. But the overall thing that I knew at that point was that everything was going to change. And at this point in my life, I don't have a lot of like large scale responsibilities, but I have a lot of moving parts in my day. So it was very, very tough to weather through in a mental and emotional way, because not only did I care about this person who I'd never met before in my life, he's maybe one of the most larger than life figures that I've ever seen, and probably one of the only people not only I didn't really have a strong negative opinion of. I don't think really anyone on the right overall had a very negative opinion of him. I never even heard the Groypers, the far left or the far right, the far right white supremacist extremists, the few that they are. I'd never heard anyone specifically single out or talk poorly about Charlie Kirk. It maybe is just kind of one of the biggest things that I've ever experienced as far as history. And honestly, living through history absolutely fucking sucks. There is no way to really get around that. Living through history sucks. And I think that a lot of people recently, like you would see textbook history as far as people having gone to war, certain things having happened, several tragedies occurring, but it feels like every single year something historically massive happens, and it's either completely life-destroying, or it's completely soul-crushing. And it does feel really shitty to live through this period of time, especially growing up. I grew up in the 2000s and 2010s. Very little actually of major significance to the American life happened in that period of time that was abundantly clear and relevant to me. I think that the biggest things that happened were probably the 2008 market crash, the home loan crisis, everything involved in that. Probably things after September 11th. I couldn't really remember that as a small child. No one, as a Zoomer, I don't think anyone really let us like clue in on exactly what happened until we were older and maybe able to comprehend and understand that a little bit better. I was 3 at the time. It's something that I kind of see as being before what I can remember in my lifetime, so I'll operate with that assumption in mind. But with everything going on, it seemed to me that this was going to change everything, and I just had a tremendous feeling of dread for the next several hours. Waiting for the actual confirmation. I'd seen the video, and I'd rewatched it to try and see what was going on, because the first several times I saw it, it was like, this is a crappy little, like, quality video that didn't really show anything. And then you get to the one that actually kind of, from a head-on angle, shows what happens, and it's pretty gruesome and terrifying to the average person. For me, I was literally looking for, what can I expect? And I think I found my answer with that. I think everyone knew who had seen that as like, you don't really... The chances of coming back from that hole are basically none. The chances of coming back from that are also very little to none. It was kind of a terrifying thing to watch someone, as they are shot, and about a pint of blood explode from them, fall back, and then just lay there lifeless. And to make a long story short, effectively speaking, everything that I'd seen, I think you've all seen most of this, or at least a large part of this. And going into this is not my favorite, because I don't really... This is actually the worst part. This is everything that happened is terrible. This is maybe the most devastating thing that can happen to a young wife, to 2 young children. I think the worst part about this was watching the reactions that happened from, I would say, nearly half of people on the left. And part of why it was completely disheartening was just the insane volume. I mean, this story was the kind of thing that everyone knew about within hours. And this is the kind of thing that most people had a very strong reaction to or opinion on. And for the 25% of the country, I'll say, give or take, that were celebrating this, cheering it on, asking for more. They wanted more. It was not shocking to me. And I think that's part of the takeaway that I've seen from a lot of other people that are younger or in the realm of being near my age, 27. A lot of people were shocked by how desensitized they were to the violence. I was shocked by how desensitized I was to the left. And in a real moment of clarity, I don't think I learned anything new. Other than what happened, I learned absolutely nothing new. I really only came to realize something, and that's that this is not something that you can just... It's not something that you can just come to terms with. It's not something that you can just write off, because it is the kind of thing that either these people have a grave misunderstanding of what constitutes violence, what constitutes evil, what constitutes bad ideology, what constitutes extremism, or they're just entirely incapable of getting through lies and complete and total misrepresentations of reality. This is an attack to me. This feels like the new attack is not anymore attack on conservative values. This is now the attack on reality. People are attacking reality at every given moment, and I feel like I really haven't connected all of the dots until this past week. With the 3 tragic happenings all in a row: the shooting at the Catholic school in Minnesota, the murder of the Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte, and of Charlie Kirk's assassination, it seems to me very clear that the real issue at hand is reality. Objective reality is not something that is common these days in the minds of the people. And that is what I've been kind of feeling very destroyed over. I don't really know how to put it into words. Despair, agony, kind of a grieving even beyond Charlie. And this is part of the problem, is that everything was so fast and quickly processed in a way in which I feel like now I'm mourning for the country over Charlie Kirk. And it's sad that Charlie Kirk isn't just Charlie Kirk, but that he's kind of, in a way, a big part of everything. And I absolutely 100% believe that this was a strategic assassination of some kind. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not so naive as to believe that it was just kind of random one-offs. This was a failure by 14 months ago was a failure by security. And near catastrophe 5 days ago was maybe one of the worst things to ever happen in American life, while only taking the life of one human being. And it's very difficult to try to express into words how grievous this is, how awful this is, because the reaction is maybe worse than you'd expect from all sides. The entirety of reactions from the right have just been general sorrow and agony and anger. And I think that that's entirely understandable. At least from my perspective, I don't consider myself a Republican. I am essentially a net center-right libertarian. Net center-right meaning not always typical positions of the center-right, maybe some more, especially when it comes to economics, when it comes to gun control, when it comes to abortion, significantly more conservative, really libertarian on the economic spectrum, because I think conservative doesn't really do justice how I feel about that. A lot of other issues I am or was, probably prior to the last year or so, fairly moderate on. And I think that the reaction that I see from a lot of people, a lot of young people, in the general conservative side of the aisle, the right-wing side of the aisle, almost everyone I've seen on the right, my age or younger, feels like this is them being radicalized. This is them going towards, we're going to be exactly what you want us to be. And I think that that's probably the worst thing that you could do, given that who Charlie was, he was not a particularly, he was, and this is the biggest killer, he was a very mainstream guy, right? He was a mainstream conservative who had mainstream conservative values, mainstream conservative talking points, mainstream conservative discussions, none of which are remotely surprising if you've been around conservative Christians at all, none of which are shocking, really, even comments or things to say given the current climate that we're in. And they killed him for it. They killed him for not being woke. I mean, it's just net not liberal. It's net not the left. If your ideology positions you to the right at all, that is just not good. And the biggest thing I think with Charlie is that he was easily the most effective person in turning that into gains for a political party. He pushed so many people to the brink in their brains, maybe not even because of what he said, maybe not because of how he said it, because again, this is not the kind of person, he's not Susan Collins. He's not literally the most liberal conservative you can find, but there was nothing remotely radical about the guy. The guy is literally just someone who really loved his family, someone who really loved talking to people, someone who really loved God, and made his life's work, which was very, very difficult work, very, in a way, especially in the past few years, very brave work. He loved doing it. Um, whether or not, I would be able to know specific and intimate details of his life, it seems like he loved every second of it. He was always kind of jovial. He was always very hopeful. I don't generally like optimistic people. Optimistic people drive me up a wall in particular. And Charlie Kirk may have been the most radiant optimist. And I think I mistook that for optimism. I believe that he was very hopeful. And in no small part, that is absolutely what the country needs. Someone who is someone who is extraordinarily hopeful, who has the hope of the promise of a better future. The kind of person who goes out and engages with the public and talks to people and isn't afraid to unashamedly state his positions very clearly, very in-depth, very effectively, and just not... This was the kind of person that if you cared about your country and you cared about the truth, you would not have gotten rid of. There are, effectively speaking, realistically 5 different camps of reactions to Charlie Kirk's death. And sorry for being very numeric today, but we've got 5 reactions and 7 things I think that we need to focus on moving forward, if you care about the country at all. And so the 4 of said 5 factions, this is really kind of for you. I don't think it's worth saying all the things I felt to the 5th faction, of course, because that would be the 20, 25, maybe 30% of the country that all is in very high spirits and very celebratory of what's gone on. Realistically, I think we're past the nice versus mean. I think now, again, it's a reality hitting people in the face versus lies. And that's what I think that today is now, this new miniature era in America is now people who lie and breathe evil. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible to see, and I think the words stop. It's terrible. It's awful. And Charlie Kirk's just a guy. He's a guy who talked to people. He's not the president. He's not a congressman. He's not a politician. At least in any conceivable way, he had no intention, no public intention, kind of the opposite by everything I've heard, of ever even running for office. He just wanted to talk to people. All he wanted to do was talk to people. He didn't want to F with anyone's lives. He didn't want to ruin anyone's life. It's insane. And I think the main reason why it's insane for this, far left faction of the country, it's insane because now I'm fairly certain. I mean, I'm not a radical person. I'm a net conservative. I'm a Catholic. I'm a capitalist. I own a business. I'm pretty sure that means everyone wants to do away with me the same as Charlie. At least all of these people. Maybe they don't even know they do yet. But if they ever got to know me, I'm sure that they'd want me gone too. I can't come to any other conclusion. And part of that is because I understand that they see me. They see you, likely if you're watching this video. They see a lot of people as massive threats. I see no reason. I see no reason to make nice with people who want me dead. Honestly, I see no reason to do it. But I think that because that really is what they wanted to get rid of. Every instinct in me does not want to make nice. And I don't think I should be making nice with any of these people. Every instinct within me is to throw that away, to completely disregard this entire segment of the population, and in a way that I think everything changes in regards to these people. It's been nice to see them lose their jobs. It'll be nice to see everyone around keep their head on a swivel. Don't trust a lot of these people. No, I just believe people hate me. And that's not very nice. I kind of had to assume that anyway. I feel like I've really learned nothing new, but things have become clearer. That's really all this is things have become clearer. And this sounds almost, I think, probably to most of those listening, like incoherent rambling. But it's a general panic in the general population. I am not the right-wing person that people should be afraid of. There's very few of those. I am only in the sense that my ideas might be a threat to theirs intellectually, that these people would want me gone. And if I believe that I somehow have any better ideas than these people on the left, that I'm an enemy to them. I'm an enemy of the state, of their state of mind. I think that's maybe that would be an alternative title to this video. Enemy of their state of mind, because honestly, I don't know what to do about that. If there is something to do about that, I would love to know. This wasn't really supposed to be a political doomer channel. This wasn't supposed to be when I was gonna start putting out regular content in the next several weeks, and I will continue to do that. But again, it's gonna be a little bit different. The other four aspects of the general reactionary spectrum are right-wing people who feel the same way I do and are going to let themselves become radicalized. There are people who feel the way I do. There are people who feel the way I do on the left. And I think that a lot of these people are not going to be on the left very long. Based on a lot of the more hopeful things that I've seen, aside from people being fired, was people with considerable disgust, somewhat self-disgust, because I know that a lot of these people don't like that they've been palling around with people who want everyone dead. And that's just what I can't assume, other than, like, you know, I mean, for these people who are like paramedics, these people who are first responders, I don't want you coming to my house. I don't want you to be the one sent to save me. Because if you see, and it doesn't even need to be a MAGA hat, if you see capitalist Catholic on my wall, as I intend to put up someday, you will let me die. I believe that wholeheartedly, because I think that you think that I'm such a threat. I'm so much of a threat to you by merely existing the way that I exist. I'm such a threat to you that you want me dead. You will easily, like, maybe it won't be obvious, maybe it'll be subtle, but it's like, oh, we couldn't really save him. Yeah, he burned to death in a fire. Oh yeah, that guy, he just didn't, he didn't really work out here. Everyone didn't like him. Like, what am I supposed to expect? What am I supposed to actually expect from these people? And the fourth out of the five, like, there's the first section being radical right-wing people who I think need to get a grip. People who are at the very least, who feel radicalized by this. Everyone feels radicalized. I don't think Charlie Kirk would have wanted us to feel radicalized. I feel like he would have wanted us to feel activated. And that is what I hope to see from a lot of people. I want to see the right activated. Because a lot of what Turning Point USA did was alert people to, you should really get out and vote. They signed people up to vote. That is a big part of what they did, is went and found innately conservative people who were not voting, and they got them to vote. Right? That's so destructive, because it's, again, within democracy and freedom of speech and the ideals that a lot of these people on the left purported to believe in, that clearly they don't. People radicalized on the right, me, and most of my friends and family, those like me, who are distraught and I think for better or for worse are going to feel as though that this is a changed world. People on the left who give me hope because they seem to have human hearts. And that's really, I think that's really all we should be able to expect to ask for at this point. And then there's of course the fourth cohort, which may even be the worst. It's the people who pretend like they care and they don't, because we know there's a lot of people out there like that. We high level politicians, most of the ones that I've seen, Governor Gavin Newsom, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, a lot of people who are they're veterans of the game. They had very respectful, Bernie Sanders even very respectful takes, very respectful posts. Bernie Sanders did a video. I think his was maybe actually genuine. But I don't believe a lot of these people. They're so backhanded about it. That there's, well, we condemn political violence because it's not right, and also Charlie Kirk was the kind of guy who deserved it, even though we don't agree with it. Like I see so much of that, and it doesn't really matter to me at some point that it was Charlie Kirk. It matters to me that this could be anybody. This could literally be anybody, anywhere at all. And if they're not radical left enough for you, if they're not on your side ideologically, they want you dead. You are the enemy. You're a Nazi. You're a fascist. That's how it is. And in that fourth category, the not quite jovial about the circumstances, but the group of people who make it very clear that they're not going to do anything about that fifth group of people. They're never going to do anything about the fifth group. In fact, that's what they want. That's actively what they want. And it's kind of disgusting. And it's, in a way, it's almost as disgusting as the fifth group of people. I actively somehow, in some way, believe that Charlie Kirk and everyone else should be trying to reach the fifth group of people, who, many of whom are too young, too naive, too stupid to know any better. Many of whom are not. And you should be careful around all of them. But that fifth group of people will come to destroy the country, and the fourth group of people will ensure it. And I have no idea what percentage those two groups of people make up, but it feels like a lot, and it feels like at least 40% of people, whether they know it or not, they go along with it. They don't care. They don't question. It might be yucky, but I don't know. I guess you're a racist, so even if you're not a Nazi, that's kind of fine. That's what these people think, and I find it abhorrent. I think that's fairly clear and easy to say. If you care about the country at all, you would not engage with these people in the way that you do. The fourth group, the four groupers. You guys are absolutely the worst, and I don't have any respect for people who, at least the fifth group is honest. I'm sorry. At least they're honest. At least some of them apologized. I know Stephen King apologized. He's like one of the only ones who was like, "Oh, I guess I'm forced to do it." Probably not even like, maybe he didn't get it. Maybe he's just a terminally online old man. But there's all these people. I don't need to name every name. You've seen them all. There's websites dedicated to it now, which I think is great. Websites dedicated to people who have personal information available publicly, and you can go to their place of work and bother their companies until they get fired, which is probably one of the best things I've seen, because in all honesty, I don't think I have to say this for most people. And for those of you who feel so radicalized and can't come down from the vitriol, even after today, I think you need to hear this, but Charlie Kirk would have wanted you to continue his legacy, I think. I'm of the opinion that it is not really an option to run away, because if it's for the country, then it's going to matter a lot more than just going along to get along and being the kind of person who, like me, doesn't really make their opinions very clear. Keep yourself safe, and then be a little brave. I think that you should not be super nice. I think that when you hear something that's a lie, you should, within whatever your best power is, to be able to say something in a meaningful way, in a coherent way, in a respectful way, disagree. I don't know. I don't really know. I think that Charlie Kirk is the kind of person who went without any disregard for his life. He had security, but knowing full well that this was going to be the kind of thing that could get him killed one day. And at this point, is this the point in time where the rest of us have to do that? If them getting rid of Charlie Kirk feels like a win for them, maybe what should be the replacement is 20,000 little less competent Charlie Kirks, which in a way sounds terrifying and in a way sounds glorious. I don't really know, but I would like to see that people on the right make their opinions very clear, make their opinions as best as they can. Do what Charlie Kirk did. Try to engage with the truth. Try to learn as best as you can and try to spread that. I got 7 general things before I go that I wanted to cover that I believe are going to be good for those of us who care about their country. Not just people on the right, people on the left who are not. Groups 4 or 5 are very much always welcome, even if we don't know that you're not. Or even if we don't know that you are groups 4 or 5. We can't really always distinguish that. But God forgives people. I suppose the repentant, we can forgive them as well. 7 things that I believe, especially based on what I've seen and what Charlie Kirk has said and everything involved, I think we should do, or at least strive towards, to make the country better. First things first, go to church. This sounds self-serving in a way. It's not. I'm not going to make this a doctrinal thing. I will say that just without any disrespect or disregard for the grieving late wife, Erica Kirk, Bible believing might not be good enough, because as I've seen a lot of today, Sunday, the first Sunday after all this went down, a lot of churches, especially like both Catholic and Protestant, a lot of the people doing a homily or a sermon, they had nothing to say regarding the situation at all. And I think that might be irresponsible at the very least and malicious at the most. But if that's who your pastor is, if that's the kind of environment at your Catholic church, if you're a Catholic or Eastern Orthodox or Jewish and you can go somewhere else somewhat easily. If you are a Protestant and have to find the legwork to either assessing your faith, maybe changing, I would appreciate that. I know Charlie Kirk's wife might appreciate that too. I don't know. She seems very respectful to everybody involved. That's why I feel bad about saying this, but no more accepting Bible believing as a good enough tenant. That's not true. All of them will say that they are a Bible believing church. You can assume that all of them might be a Bible believing church. You can get good vibes and bad outcomes. I think that you need to go to churches that seek the truth. And even if that's not what I assume to be the truth, I would like to see more Americans going to churches that actually care about making good arguments. I've been to a lot of non-denominational churches in my life where I believe that they actually did seek the truth, and then I've been to a lot of those that really didn't. And that seems to be almost evidently clear even before I became Catholic. Once I was Catholic, it's rare that I ever went to any sort of religious service besides Mass. But yeah, go to a truth-seeking church. A church that actively seeks truth. Minor clarification on Erica's statement from Friday, but with all due respect to her and the staff at Turning Point, who I believe that's largely why she said that. She said Bible believing church as her specific words. I'm not going to be like former Congressman Joe Walsh and be a complete dick. People have a right to grieve, and people have a right to say what they feel. Another thing, number 2, another thing that Erica also talked about in her speech that I will reiterate: probably invest in getting married and getting children. Consider investing in a wife and a kid, maybe more kids, maybe like 5, maybe like as many kids as you want to have in your life, maybe more than you want to have in your life. Maybe everyone should have kids. Get married to someone worth getting married to. Don't waste your time with people you shouldn't waste your time with. Don't make someone become the person you end up marrying, rather than like find the correct person. You should always look for the right person. Don't make a rash decision. Don't make a rash decision. Go to church, get married, seek truth, which I've already covered, I think, but he sought out the truth. I think anyone who is doing their due diligence will always try to seek out the truth. But I do believe that as human beings, we sometimes rest on our laurels and are not consistently active in that regard. And I believe that people need to spend more time seeking out truth. Number 4, you've got to do something worthwhile doing. Not just living a life, working a shitty job, but do something that you love and enjoy that's not bad for you. Effectively, do something you love. Might also be the wife, aforementioned wife, but I can't express how grateful I am in my life to be able to do things that I like. I have 2 YouTube channels that I do things on. Some of you may know, not in the flesh as I am right now, but being able to be an entrepreneur, being able to engage with my audience, which is one of the most maybe underappreciated things in a lot of people's lives. I hear a lot of people on streaming, streaming on Twitch, on YouTube, all of the above, etc. They don't quite enjoy it very much. I think that you need to enjoy it more. If you're doing it, either enjoy it more and find something else you really like. If everyone can find something that they love doing and do that as well as they can, I think that's really important. Probably should have been the third in line, but or probably should have been actually the third in line and not the 5th. But number 5, you need to get better in health, get healthier, get better sleep, work on losing weight, things like that. I think that that's feeling better overall, being in better shape. I don't think I need to tell you, even though you can't see everything, the camera doesn't hide everything. I am not in the best shape myself. Honestly, none of these things I've done very well, other than I think I've been very picky on what I try to believe to be fact or fiction. All of the aforementioned things I have not really done in any good regard until recently, at least. Work on losing weight, work on sleeping well, work on being around for a while, because the world's a better place with you in it. And once you find the things that you like and the people that care about you and make you go on every day, you're gonna want to be around for a while to do all that. Number 6. See, this is why you need to be set up. You see all these damn boxes? That's the stuff I love doing. It has to find a new home. Number 6, be organized. Be and maybe not just organized, but be put together. Be well put together. Learn how to organize how you talk. I am not doing a very good job of that tonight. I do a significantly better. And see, I'm leaving most of these flubs in because it's a hell of a day. My voice is scratchy as it is. This has taken like pieces of takes, but try to be organized in how you speak. Like I'm not doing very well tonight because, again, this is a primarily unscripted video. Be organized in how you speak. Be organized in how you approach things. Be organized in how you spend your money. think that's really, really important. By the way, this channel is going to be going over a lot of how to be organized spending your money. But spend your money in an organized fashion. Do it well. Speak well. Speak very eloquently. Don't feel like you sound like RFK Jr. like I'm doing right now. We love RFK Jr. in this house, but I can't do all my things like this. It'll be too exhausting if I could have to talk and speak like this forever. I don't. Okay, doing that literally sent me into a coughing fit, so I'm not gonna try doing that again yet. More impressions on the way, but organize yourself in a way in which you can be proud of, in which other people can be proud of and look up to you. Charlie Kirk had to have a considerable amount of organization because he organized an entire coalition called Turning Point USA. He organized his words very well. Again, organization. It's something that's multifaceted in what I'm asking you to do, but it all revolves around get better scrub. I could do this too. I'm usually more eloquent than this, but not as eloquent as Charlie Kirk. And part of why I think there should be at least 20,000 of us trying to replace Charlie Kirk. In different facets too. I believe that all of us have different regards in which we are talented and or skilled and or adept. But maybe the most important part, number seven. This is something that I think might actually be the hottest take I might have, especially on the right, because most people on the left are not going to agree with anything I'm saying. But on the right, I've heard a lot of people say that it is very horrific. Do not watch the video, right? The video of Charlie getting shot. I'm gonna read you a quote. I'm gonna read you a quote from Delegate Nick Freitas, who's very up and coming. So every time I feel tired, every time I feel discouraged or overwhelmed, I'm going to watch the video of a good man being murdered in Utah. I will force myself to watch it, and then I will return to the work of destroying the evil ideology responsible for that, and so much more. Very divisive take. I entirely agree with the sentiment of that statement. I believe everyone should probably watch that video if you want to be the kind of man who is going to be able to fight that fight. Especially with the brazen categories 4 and 5 we have now. This is not a complete and total endorsement that everyone should watch the video, but number 7, I believe we need to restore the patriarchy. And by that I mean, I believe we need to restore men being men, and men being responsible, and men being better, just better in general. And women aren't great right now. I'll go into that in gruesome detail later. But men need to pick it up. Go back to mass. Sharpen your sword in an intellectual way. Know how to fight the ideology that needs to be fought at the ballot box through hearts and minds. Don't make the fight something that you can't or don't want to win. I don't think people want to win a gory fight. I somehow still believe that the majority of Americans want to see their country put back together. But it's clear to me that the left 4 and 5 category, they're not going to be a large part of that. It would be nice to see some of them come back into the fold, but that's not going to happen in large numbers. I don't believe that. As it stands, I believe that it's it's sort of it's now or never, you know. I think that we're at the precipice, and to try to end off, let's be even more doomer. So the country, as you might know, is about 250 years old. Shortly thereafter, the founding of this country, there was a French Revolution, and in that French Revolution, we gained the concept of politically left and right, being the moderates, the ones who tended towards the way things were on the right side of the chamber, and the Jacobins, the radicals, all the way on the left. They self-segregated into two different camps. And strangely, largely, the country has also done that. The right is largely on the east side of the country, and more so the left has been coalescing around the west coast, which is funny to me in a weirdly poetic way. But we are due for a change. That was 250 years ago. This was after the political battles became less about Catholicism versus Protestantism and more about left versus right. And those kinds of cycles happen about once every 250 years. Not getting into all the historical background for that and everything, but I think the 250 years is coming up soon. And it seems evident to me that we are not quite on the brink of civil war, but I think we're somewhere in the 1850s. I think that it's about to get terrible, and things might escalate it and make it worse. But this is a now or never. Be motivated to get better. Be motivated to make the world better. I will see you all there. We'll see you all again on the channel if you want to come back. If after all of this, you wish to hear the better version of this that has more preparation and doesn't sound sick and isn't crying every 5 minutes trying to talk or coughing, one or the other, hopefully join us again next time. For Union and for Liberty, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. I'll give you one last quote that I'm going to leave you on. If you believe in something, you need to have the courage to fight for those ideas. Not run away from them or try to silence them. And it was the late Charlie Kirk, the great Charlie Kirk. He's the greatest, the absolute best man, best martyr ever.